said it. I'm doing well this morning.
Yeah.
I mean, the Rangers looked great last night. They shut out the Islanders, and this JT Miller trade looks to be unbelievable as he unlocked Mika Zibanejad on top of it. Ranger fans know this. This Will Borgen guy that essentially replaced Jacob Trouba has been playing great for half the money. I mean, the goalies have been great. This was probably one of their best defensive efforts that I've seen all year this year. And it looks like a completely different team. And could this be a team in the last 20 games that makes one of these significant runs? I don't want to get over my skis on this whole thing. They are tied for a wild card, but however, the teams in front of them do have a game in hand. But they haven't played hockey like this. And they, quite frankly, they played well against the Maple Leafs on Friday night, and they probably could have won that game as well. So they are playing great. The goalies are playing great. Blocked a lot of shots last night. And, yes, I am very, very happy with that performance. But, you know, there's still growing to do. And I still think that Chris Drury, why he may not be big game hunting today, I think he's going to be big game hunting over the next 2 years. And you can just follow the contracts and look at what's going on and look who may be off of a contract in a couple years, who's going to possibly be a free agent in other areas. So I still think they're big game hunting for the future. But right now, I couldn't be any happier with the way that they played last night. So that's great. As far as Luis Gil is concerned, that is horrendous news for the Yankees again. I mean, that is just. I mean, the hits keep coming, and they really were going to rely heavily on him, probably to give them a minimum of 150 to 175 innings. That's what I would have thought. And I don't know if he'll even be back this year. You know how these guys are.
He will.
I don't know. I'm telling you.
It's a latch strain, which is severe that they said. But at the same time, there's no surgery with that.
It's no surgery. It takes a lot of time. It's at least a 3-month injury. At least a 3-month injury. And then you know how they.
I mean, it's just March now.
But you know how they are when the guys come back and all of a sudden they go out and throw and they have a little discomfort, a little tightness, and then they shut them down for another 3 weeks. I mean. What is reasonably expected from last year's Rookie of the Year? What could you reasonably expect? Maybe a July return?
Yeah, I mean, and that would be great if that were the case, that he came back and was the same guy last year. I know it's asking a lot. When you hear the shoulder thing, you think surgery, you think out for the year. That's all. The two things, shoulder and elbow, and you even explained
this is lat,
right? And you explained to me, but they had said
not impingement,
right? No, I know, but they said shoulder MRI at first. So anytime you see elbow or shoulder MRI, you think, okay, surgery done for the year. So they come back, they say severe lat strain, which I thought part of that was positive in the fact that there's no surgery. So he should come back. Yes, I know that these guys take forever, but these seasons are so long. We talk about it in all these sports, and baseball is the longest, and the Yankees are good enough in the American League to sustain an injury like this, get him back in July, and then have that be a boost for him.
Getting him back would be like what?
Yes, that's right. Yes, like big trade acquisition at the deadline.
Yeah, there you go, because that's really what it's going to come down to. But, I mean, it's just amazing how many guys are getting injured. And then, of course, for the Mets, good news, Kodai Senga went 2 innings instead of 1 and then 2 on the backfields because he wanted to compete. I love that. Wanting to compete in spring training, that's awesome. And he hit 96 yesterday.
Yeah,
I don't know if you saw that.
I did see that.
Yeah,
I think the better story was David Peterson and how well he pitched and how well he has been pitching. So the Mets have to rely on those guys. They got to rely on David Peterson. They got to rely on Clay Holmes, and they certainly have to rely on a healthy Kodai Senga. So, yeah, so far so good with those guys. But it's also basically, I mean, you got to take every spring training outing or whatever with a grain of salt. You just want these guys to be healthy. Just be healthy.
I mean, it's unbelievable. It really is.
Yeah, just get to whatever it is, March 27th, with as many healthy guys as you can and keep them healthy.
You know what? These pitching labs. Yeah. These pitching labs are important. And, they got to keep these guys in these pitching labs as opposed to putting them on the injured list.
That is true. Got to keep them in the lab.
I mean, listen, this, what is transpired, like from the days of Tom Seaver, Bob Gibson, Steve Carlton, all these great pitchers, Nolan Ryan, let me just go out there and throw gas and smoke and not worry about my shoulder, not worry about my elbow. You know why? Because they had the right mechanics. And they didn't have all these 97 different pitchers, the ghost forkball, the sweeper, all these different things, the hard sliders and all this other crap. I mean, they just went out there and pitched.
Yeah, and then every time we talk about this, people do bring up the fact that when you start playing baseball at a young age, now you're throwing all these pitches at a younger age, and it puts more wear and tear on your arm. And it's unfortunate, but that's where we are, and it's never going to change. At this point, it's never going to go back the other way.
I know. It's amazing. Honestly, how much would those guys be worth in today's dollars if they were pitching and pitched as many innings as they pitched per season?
Oh, yeah. I mean, it would.
I mean, those are the halcyon days of truly the great starting pitcher.
I mean, you saw Steve Cohen give Justin Verlander and Max Scherzer $40 million a year at the end of their careers. I mean, just think about what those guys would be getting in their prime. Yeah.
It's so like for those of us who grew up during that time and could always count on the same guy every 5 days.
Yeah.
I mean, it was amazing. I don't remember really, and maybe it's just my foggy memory, or maybe I just have a better outlook on my childhood when I was a fan of these teams. I don't ever remember guys getting hurt and being treated so tenderly.
No, it didn't happen. No, it's the exact opposite. But you think about like the money, what guys would make. Like imagine being a guy coming off an MVP season, being a lefty quarterback, a leader, took his team to the Super Bowl, won an AFC championship, and then hitting free agency after that. How much that guy would make? That guy would make in 2025.
You know what? You know one of those guys?
Yeah, I do. I do. Yeah. You think it would be like $50 million?
I'll tell you one thing. I would not be sitting here. That's for sure. I'd be sitting on a beach somewhere flying a private jet around.
I didn't bring it up the other day because I didn't want to get
annoy me.
Yeah. But when I was going through all the quarterbacks that are making $50 million per year.
Per year. This is not their entire career.
And
I didn't even, listen, I'm not complaining. I did really well, and I've had a post career that's I've done well.
You're not complaining, but the fact remains, though, that you and what you did then, if you did it now, you'd be making $50 million. That's all you're saying.
Man, all I know is I'd be on Further Lane in East Hampton on the ocean. That's all I know. That's where I would be.
Yeah.
That would be in the summertime.
Yeah.
In the wintertime, I don't know. Probably down in Miami somewhere.
Oh, Miami. You don't strike me as a Miami guy.
I don't know. I'd probably have a place out in the mountains in Phoenix.
Yeah.
Love that.
Mm-hmm.
I just, people don't understand, the amount of money that these guys are making.
I think we understand.
Which is great. I mean, so in 1987, we go on strike. Mm-hmm. At that time, I was the highest paid player in the league. Mm-hmm. You have to understand this.
True.
I signed my contract in August of 1987. And Chris Collinsworth was waiting outside the room after I had signed the contract, and he couldn't believe that I just signed a contract that was for $1.2 million a year. He couldn't believe it. He couldn't believe that the Bengals gave somebody $1 million, and I couldn't believe it either because you grow up in East Islip, Fawn Court, Country Village, Heckscher State Park in the backyard, one car, 3 bedrooms, 1 bathroom. I mean, come on.
Yeah.
You got to understand,
of course.
That moment
Absolutely.
was unbelievable.
Yeah.
And then, 5 weeks later, we're on strike.
And you're laying in front of buses.
Yeah, I'm sitting in front of buses. But, here we are in 2025. And, I mean, Sam Darnold, if they would have tagged him, would have been a $40 million tag. And T. Higgins got a $26 million tag. The Bengals supposedly want to try to keep T. Higgins. And Joe Burrow is putting enormous pressure on the Bengals to keep these 3 big free agents that they have, Trey Hendrickson, Jamar Chase. Well, Jamar's not a free agent, but they want to get a deal done with him to make him the highest paid non-playing quarterback in the league. And then of course, T. Higgins. So you got 4 guys that make up 30% of the salary cap.
Yeah, and I'd be surprised if they found a way to get T. Higgins to a number that he's going to be satisfied with on a long-term deal because of exactly what you said. And I think that because they have the ability to tag him again because the salary cap went up, I think the way that the Bengals are probably going to look at it is, hey, I'm sorry, T, but we are paying you a ton of money this year, and we want to go for this. We want to go and try to win a championship next year and have a healthy team, and we think we can do it. I mean, look at the way the Kansas City Chiefs just looked in the Super Bowl, for God's sakes. We think we can do this.
Yeah, with their defense. So here, I will tell you this. He is an extremely popular player in Cincinnati. He's an extremely popular player in the locker room. Everybody loves the guy. He has taken less money to stay there. He was a second-round draft pick, which means he's under certain different rules. So instead of the fifth-year, club option where, Sauce Gardner and Garrett Wilson will find out what that means because Jamar Chase is dealing with that right now, just like Justin Jefferson dealt with that right now. T. Higgins now 2 years in a row gets tagged. They're essentially screwing him. He's like the 0.1% of players who get screwed because if he would have hit free agency, he would be by far either he or Ronnie Stanley, the left tackle for the Baltimore Ravens, would be the number one pick when it comes to free agency, and everybody would be going after him. I doubt that the Bengals are going to trade him. I mean, this could happen where, they have Jamar Chase under control. They're going to give him a new contract, and the Bengals probably want to try to get to I would think a 4-year, $120 million deal with T. Higgins, but if they can't do it, they may trade him, and that would not make Joe Burrow very happy, but that would mean that the Bengals then would turn their attention to either a free agent wide receiver like a Devontae Adams, or maybe they draft a young kid, which they've had success with in the past there in Cincinnati.
Yeah, and there's going to be a ton of suitors for T. Higgins if and when he becomes available, whether it's a trade this year or free agency next year. With Sam Darnold, that's a very interesting case. And, of course, the last 2 games, it was sort of like he turns back into a pumpkin, and that has something to do with the money that he's going to make this offseason. We did this the other day, looking at some of the teams that he may go to. Like, let's say the Vikings don't want to bring him back, or it gets to a point. It could get to a point where no one else wants him and the number dwindles down and screw it. We will bring him back at this number, even though we didn't expect to. But there aren't a lot of landing spots for him that I think are a good match right now. And, one of those, I mean, if you're someone who's not a part of New York sports and paying attention to the way things have gone the last number of years, like people will say, oh, Sam Darnold and the Giants, like that would be something that works. I don't think so. Him coming back here at MetLife Stadium and all that stuff, no way.
I don't think so either. And I think that what's really interesting is that yesterday, because of all this discussion about the potential of Aaron Rodgers coming here because the Giants went after Matthew Stafford, it just makes the Giants look desperate to me. But I mean, that's what they have to be. They have to be desperate because 2 guys are trying to keep their jobs. And I think if I were sitting in their seats, I would be trying to do everything I possibly could to get a guy like Matthew Stafford. Or now, okay, what's next? And what's really interesting, just watching yesterday and listening to all this stuff coming out of the combine and listening to all the different talking heads that talk football just like we do, there's this prevailing thought that somehow the Giants have told people like at the scouting combine, we're just a quarterback away. We're just a quarterback away. If we can get a real quarterback, we think we got a really good team.
Yeah.
If that's maybe they're right. Maybe they see something we don't see.
Well,
maybe.
It depends who that quarterback is. If that quarterback is Jaden Daniels out of the draft, then maybe, because the Commanders just did it. Maybe they're looking at that situation.
Yeah, but there isn't one of these quarterbacks coming out of this draft that is that kid. That's just
if Josh Allen goes to the Giants, which he never would, then maybe you're a quarterback away.
But this is why, the discussion is surrounding Aaron Rodgers. He's maybe the best short-term option for them. The best short-term option for them. And again, I don't know how he fits into this offense. I don't know how they tailor the offense for him, the different things that he has been used to doing for so long. He did it his entire career in Green Bay and then did it the 2 years that he was here. Mm-hmm. And even though he didn't play 1 year, all the practices that he had, all the practices when he came back at the end of that year, he got hurt. And you remember that was all part of the documentary and everything. I just want to show you that the speed bridge works and all this other crap. And if we would have made it to the playoffs, I would have been ready to go. That was all surrounding who he was as a player, and everything was built around him. That's not who the Giants are right now. The Giants aren't his offense.
No. But I would think, though, that Brian Daboll understands and Aaron Rodgers would understand that they have to meet in the middle. He can't come in here and do what he's been doing, Aaron Rodgers. He just can't. And he's got to understand that, too, because, just as the Giants are desperate, it seems like Aaron Rodgers is desperate to not go out on such a low note. So if that's the case, you have to cave a little bit into saying, okay, I'm not going to come in and do the Nate Hackett, Aaron Rodgers thing that I've been doing for the last million years. I got to listen to somebody else.
It's a lot, with a 41-year-old kind of headstrong guy. And, the interesting thing to me is that a number of his teammates at the Jets really wanted him back. So that tells you that people in the locker room liked him. I mean, if Quentin Williams is coming out and saying, I wish we would have kept him, or something to that on those lines. I mean, it tells you that they do, for us in the media and for us outside the locker room and all the stuff that is surrounding him, it gives us a lot to talk about. It would be great if the Giants got him for us.
Yeah, I know. I kind of poo-poo the locker room wants him, because this is a locker room filled with guys that know nothing but losing, all of them. So what do they know about what it takes to win? So it's we should have him back.
Seems like a lot of guys, even the guys that he brought here, maybe they were towards the end of their careers, and I figured they got an extra year out of it because of their friendship with Aaron Rodgers. But, it seems to me like externally there's one view of him, and then internally there's, from the player's perspective,
some
there's
players,
a different view.
Yeah.
Yes.
I mean, and a lot of these guys that have lauded him are defensive players, by the way. Which have been Solomon Thomas and Quentin Williams.
I mean, it's interesting that Garrett Wilson kind of, with Devontae Adams here and the way that whole thing went down, and maybe now he's happy. He's not asking for a trade. I mean, first of all, he wants a trade. Then he doesn't want a trade. Then he wants a contract extension. I mean, what are we doing here?
Yeah.
It's it's all over the place.
That's why, I think that we have overrated a lot of these players. I think that is what it comes down to. And those guys had great rookie seasons in Garrett Wilson and Sauce Gardner. They have not got back to that level since. And this team's just been bad.
Well, it's going to be up to Aaron Glenn to change that mindset. I mean, let me ask you this question. Just thinking about where the Jets are right now. If you had to give me, out of the 16 AFC teams, where would you rank the Jets' chances of going first to the playoffs, their chances of going to the playoffs out of the 16 teams, and then possibly going to the Super Bowl this coming year? I know you're laughing.
Yeah. I would say that the Browns.
The reason I'm asking you this is because I want to make a point.
Well, yeah. I think that the Browns are worse. I think that the Titans have the ability to be worse. And then outside of that, I think it's difficult to find another AFC team. I think the teams in their division, every single one of them, including the Patriots, I would say have a better chance than they do. Everybody in the North has a better chance. The South, Indianapolis is kind of a mess, but I'd still take their chances. All right,
so you're talking about how the losing permeates the locker room, and I understand that. Aaron Glenn was a part of that under Richie Kotite. He saw it, and he saw the changes that were able to be made by when Bill Parcells came in. And, Bill Parcells changed a lot of things, and I think Aaron Glenn is in the middle of all that. Is now the time to even consider trading high on players that are young and are really good players? We don't know how good they can be. Or do you build around those young players and see if they have the gumption and the patience to deal with losing over the next couple of years? Or do you sell high right now?
If there are teams out there that think that Garrett Wilson could be a number one wide receiver and think that they could get Sauce Gardner back to what he was when he was a rookie, then, yeah, I would trade him.
So then that would be a full-on rebuild.
Yeah.
And if you're Darren Mucci, do you have, well, I guess Rick Spielman could, counsel him and help him and talk him through it. Are you looking at a team that you think can win this coming year, or do you think it's now time to get rid of some of the guys that have been tainted by losing and media and scrutiny and everything else, and start a rebuild right now with
your guys?
With your guys, with Bill Parcells came in, and he was so big and so powerful, and he was able to pretty quickly turn this thing around. Now, he kept some of the players that obviously Richie Kotite had paid, but he had quarterback issues too. He had Neil O'Donnell couldn't stay healthy, and then I'm trying to think he had trying to think of the other couple quarterbacks he had, and then he finally brought in Vinny.
Lucas.
Ray Lucas was one, and then he had Vinny. Then he brought Vinny in, and that's when the team started to take off. I'm just wondering aloud, if you are the Jets right now, what if you really are honest about where you are as a team with a rookie GM and a rookie head coach? Is now the time to pull the plug and say we are rebuilding and we are going to build from the ground up and try to do this? Or are these guys good enough to be able to build around, and are they patient enough not to become a pain in the ass and get in the way if you're losing next year?
Well, I mean, Quinnen Williams put it right out there. Goes, I guess we're going through another rebuild. Like, that's what they think. Because they all have such a negativity around it.
Like, you don't want them turning into Myles Garrett right now.
No, you don't. But Myles Garrett has a legitimate gripe. He's an actual good player. You know what I'm saying?
I understand that. But, like, that's the thing that I would worry about. And I'm sure Aaron Glenn's going to do his damnedest to convince everybody that things are going to be different, but then because that's what every coach does.
Yeah.
That's what every new GM does. They try to reset the organization when they come in and do it in the eyes, the way that they see it. And that's what Detroit had to do, and Aaron went through that with them those first 2 years.
I think, to answer your question, though, I think that these guys think that they can win with these players, Muji and Glenn.
Yeah,
that's what they think.
Yes.
But it might not be the right thing, and they might have to deal with these unhappy guys that have just gone on and on and on as losers since they've gotten there.
It's like I was saying about the Browns, and I've been saying it now for 6 weeks.
Yeah.
The moment that Myles Garrett came out and said, I want to be traded, the Browns have a chance right now because of their draft capital this year and him wanting to be traded. They have a chance to reset their franchise. Now, it's not going to be easy, and there's going to be some losing associated with that.
But they're used to that. So.
They're used to it, but it also gets louder and louder and louder. But to me, given all that they have going on in this draft, and I think this draft is middle rounds by most accounts, is you're getting really good players in the middle rounds of this draft as well as the top 10 players in this draft. Now is the time to reset if you're the Browns. And I just wonder if the Jets should be doing the same thing.